He was escorting a fallen soldier. The airline tried to stop him. Big mistake. The morning was somber, the air thick with unspoken grief as Major Desmond Carter adjusted the silver star pinned to his crisp military uniform. A decorated soldier, Major Carter had served his country for over 2 decades, leading troops through some of the most dangerous conflicts around the world. Today, however, he wasn't on duty in the traditional sense. He was tasked with a solemn mission, escorting the coffin of Private First Class Tyler Hastings, a young soldier who had tragically fallen in the line of duty, back to his grieving family. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Major Carter walked into the bustling Monaco International Airport with a quiet dignity, the weight of his duty evident in his deliberate steps. Behind him, a military honor guard carried the flag-draped coffin with the precision and respect befitting a fallen hero. As he approached the check-in counter for the flight, heads turned. Some eyes lingered with admiration for the uniform he wore. Others darted away, betraying a discomfort rooted in prejudice. 2 airline officers, men in their early 40s with clipped accents and an air of self-importance, stood at the counter. Their uniforms were neatly pressed, their expressions indifferent. As Major Carter approached, their eyes narrowed, scanning him with a mix of skepticism and thinly veiled disdain. "Excuse me," Major Carter said, his voice steady but firm. "I'm Major Desmond Carter. I'm escorting this fallen soldier to his family. We need to ensure his safe transport on this flight." The first officer, whose name tag read Thompson, sneered slightly. "Do you have proper documentation?" he asked, his tone icy. Major Carter produced a stack of neatly prepared military papers. "All the documents are here, including clearance from the airline." Thompson barely glanced at the papers before shoving them back. "I don't see why we should prioritize this. You people always think you're entitled to special treatment." Major Carter's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. "This isn't about me. It's about honoring a soldier who gave his life for his country." The second officer, Reed, smirked and crossed his arms. "Look, we're not running a charity here. That coffin's going to take up cargo space. Maybe you should have thought about that before showing up unannounced." The disrespect was palpable. Passengers nearby began to murmur, some whispering their disapproval, others too stunned to intervene. Major Carter took a deep breath, his voice steady but laced with authority. "Gentlemen, I urge you to reconsider your words and actions. This is a matter of respect and duty, not cargo logistics." But the officers weren't done. Thompson leaned forward, his sneer growing. "And what if we don't? What are you going to do about it?" Before Major Carter could respond, a senior airline manager approached, alerted by the growing tension. The manager, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, asked, "What's going on here?" Reed was quick to respond, his voice dripping with mock professionalism. "This gentleman claims he's escorting a coffin, but he doesn't have the right documentation. We're just following protocol." Major Carter handed the manager the same set of papers. She scanned them briefly before her expression hardened. "These are in perfect order," she said, her voice sharp. "You're telling me you were about to deny boarding to a fallen soldier and his escort without even reviewing the documents properly?" Thompson and Reed stammered, their smugness faltering. We were just trying to enforce the rules," Thompson muttered. The manager turned to Major Carter. "Major, I sincerely apologize for their behavior. You and the soldier will be given every courtesy and respect." But before she could dismiss the officers, Major Carter raised a hand. "Thank you, but this isn't just about me. It's about addressing the blatant disrespect and prejudice I've faced here today." The murmurs among the passengers grew louder, and some began clapping in support. The manager's face darkened. "You're absolutely right, Major. This behavior is unacceptable. Thompson, Reed, consider this your last warning. One more incident, and you're out." But Major Carter wasn't finished. "I'd like to speak with your corporate office. This isn't the first time I've encountered this kind of behavior, and it won't be the last unless there's accountability." The manager nodded, visibly embarrassed by the incident. "Of course, Major. I'll ensure your concerns are addressed at the highest level." As Major Carter and the honor guard proceeded to the boarding gate, passengers parted to let them through, some offering salutes or murmured words of gratitude. The officers, meanwhile, were left standing awkwardly, their faces red with shame. Once on board, the pilot himself came to greet Major Carter. "Sir, it's an honor to have you aboard. We'll make sure everything is handled with the utmost respect." The flight was quiet, save for the hum of the engines and the occasional whispered conversation among passengers. When they landed, a full military honor guard awaited the arrival of the coffin. The ceremony was solemn and dignified, a stark contrast to the earlier ordeal. Back at the airline's headquarters, the incident didn't go unnoticed. Major Carter's formal complaint, combined with witness accounts from passengers and staff, led to a thorough investigation. Thompson and Reed were suspended, their actions condemned publicly by the airline's CEO. As for Major Carter, he returned to his duties with his head held high, knowing he had stood not just for himself, but for the dignity and respect of every soldier who served. The story spread quietly among military circles, a reminder that courage and integrity aren't just shown on the battlefield. They're shown in everyday life, even in the face of prejudice. The events at Monaco International Airport marked only the beginning of a ripple effect that Major Desmond Carter could not have foreseen. While the incident had been handled in the moment, it left a lingering impact that resonated far beyond the airport's polished halls. 2 weeks after the flight, Major Carter received an unexpected letter at his military base. It bore the official insignia of the airline's corporate office. Inside was a formal apology from the CEO, along with an invitation to meet and discuss ways the airline could improve its treatment of veterans and active service members. Attached was a first-class voucher for any flight of his choice, a gesture that felt more like damage control than genuine amends. Carter, ever the professional, accepted the invitation. But instead of taking the flight voucher as a token of goodwill, he saw it as an opportunity to spark real change. He knew this wasn't just about his experience. It was about ensuring that no one, soldier or civilian, faced such blatant disrespect again. A week later, Carter arrived at the airline's headquarters in Paris. Dressed in his full uniform, he walked into the sleek glass building with the same commanding presence he carried on the battlefield. The CEO, a middle-aged man with a polished demeanor named Laurent Dubois, greeted him warmly. "Major Carter, thank you for coming," Dubois said, extending a hand. "I want to personally apologize for the disgraceful behavior you endured." Carter shook his hand firmly. "Mr. Dubois, I appreciate your words, but apologies mean little without action. I didn't come here for compensation or empty promises. I came here to talk about change." Dubois nodded, his expression turning serious. "That's exactly what we're hoping to achieve. Please, let's discuss." As they sat in a sunlit conference room, Carter outlined a series of suggestions. First, he proposed mandatory sensitivity and cultural training for all airline staff, emphasizing respect for passengers of all backgrounds. Second, he recommended a streamlined protocol for military personnel transporting fallen soldiers to prevent unnecessary delays or disrespect. Finally, he insisted on an anonymous reporting system where passengers and employees could safely voice concerns about discrimination or misconduct. Dubois listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. "These are excellent points," he said when Carter finished. "I'll admit, our current policies have gaps. Your experience has highlighted areas where we've failed, and I intend to address them." The airline wasted no time implementing Carter's recommendations. Over the following months, new training programs were rolled out, and internal policies were overhauled. The company even launched an initiative called Honor in Transit, offering free flights for families of fallen soldiers transporting their loved ones. Meanwhile, the suspension of Thompson and Reed escalated into a full termination. Investigations revealed a pattern of complaints against the two officers for unprofessional behavior and discriminatory remarks. Their dismissal sent a clear message that such conduct would not be tolerated. For Carter, the experience became a powerful reminder of his role not just as a soldier, but as a leader. He began to receive invitations to speak at military events, universities, and even corporate seminars, sharing his story as a lesson in resilience and advocacy. One evening, while addressing a group of young cadets at a military academy in Monaco, Carter recounted the incident with the airline. "There will be times," he told them, "when your uniform won't shield you from prejudice. But how you respond to those moments will define who you are, not just as a soldier, but as a person." The cadets listened with rapt attention, inspired by his calm determination and unyielding commitment to justice. After the talk, a young woman approached him, her eyes shining with admiration. "Major Carter," she said, "your story reminds me why I want to serve, not just to protect, but to stand up for what's right." The impact of Carter's actions extended beyond the military and corporate worlds. His story reached grassroots organizations advocating for veterans' rights and racial equality. He partnered with several of them, lending his voice to campaigns that called for systemic change in industries far removed from the battlefield. Months later, Carter received another letter, this time from the family of Private First Class Tyler Hastings. They expressed their heartfelt gratitude for the dignity and respect he had ensured for their son's final journey. "You carried Tyler home with the honor he deserved," they wrote. "We'll never forget what you did for our family." The letter brought Carter a sense of closure, but it also deepened his resolve. He knew there was still much work to be done, not just in the military, but in society as a whole. As for Thompson and Reed, their careers took a steep downturn. Word of their actions at the airport followed them wherever they went, making it nearly impossible for them to find employment in the aviation industry. The incident became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the consequences of prejudice and arrogance. Years later, Major Carter, now retired from active duty, sat on the board of multiple organizations dedicated to fostering equality and respect. He often reflected on that fateful day at the Monaco airport, grateful for the opportunity it gave him to turn a moment of adversity into a catalyst for change. And while he rarely spoke of the personal toll the incident took on him, he carried with him a quiet pride, for in the face of disrespect and discrimination, he had stood firm, not just for himself, but for every soldier, every passenger, and every person who deserved to be treated with dignity.